17 years old, having just finished my sophomore year of high school. I had plans for the summer, like hanging out with my friends and playing endless amounts of volleyball. The morning of June 4, I was packed and ready to leave for my second trip to Guatemala City. I was excited to be starting my summer with a trip to Guatemala that I had been on the year before. I was looking forward to seeing kids that I had bonded with and was also going with some of my close friends that had never gone before. Our group was ready to leave for a trip to the airport around 9 a.m. I was a little tired getting ready to leave, but nothing out of the ordinary, considering I was busy with school, volleyball, and training for a race. I said goodbye to my parents, expecting to see them in about 9 days and continue with our summer plans. We flew from Chicago to Miami, Florida, and that's when everything started to change. About 10 minutes before our plane landed in Miami, I started to feel sick. I was sitting next to a friend, and I leaned over to her and said my left shoulder was hurting, worse than I ever imagined it could. It ached from the inside out and almost burned. She told one of the teachers that was on the trip with us, and once the plane landed, I decided to talk to paramedics. Their paramedics checked me out and asked me questions, but concluded that I was okay to travel, even though by this time my left arm was going limp and my body felt heavy. They told me I should take some Advil and stay hydrated, so that's what I did. The paramedics left, and I walked with my teacher to get something to eat. And as we made our way to the next gate, walking to our destination became a challenge, and I wasn't sure why, but my body felt very strange. I no longer had strength in my arms to hold on to my pillow or my backpack, and then I started to lean to the left as I walked. I took off my flip-flops, thinking I was tripping over my own feet, but this didn't help. We got to our gate, and I started to get upset. My body felt strange and weak, and I didn't want anyone to be around me because I was so hot. At this point, I had drank so much water that I needed to go to the bathroom. So I walked to the bathroom with two girls from my class. I walked to the bathroom with two girls from my class, and they followed me. By the time I had gone to the bathroom, I needed to put my arms around the girls to walk back to our group. The feeling of their arms touching my neck hurt so badly that I was holding back tears. When we got to our group, one of the moms who was with us told the teachers that I needed to go to the hospital. I made it to a pole and sat down on the ground with my back against it. I felt so hot, and my body was floppy and very heavy. Paramedics came for a second time. This group of guys looked much more serious. A man who looked to be about the age of 50 knelt down in front of me and told me that it was really important that I stood up, so I grabbed his hands. I looked into his eyes and said, "I'm sorry, but I can't. My body won't let me." He moved away, and I talked to my dad on the phone as someone held it up to my ear. I started to cry because I wasn't sure how to tell him what was going on. So all that I said was, "You can't tell Mom. She's going to freak out." He said, "Honey, I'm going to have to tell her, and you're going to have to go to the hospital." I was taken by ambulance from the airport to a small hospital. By the time I got there, I couldn't move anything. It was hard to breathe, and my pain continued to increase. It was eventually determined that they could not help me, so they took me by a second ambulance to a children's hospital in Miami. As soon as I arrived at the children's hospital, I was rushed to a CT scan. I had no idea what was going on, but this test took about 20 minutes. After the first round of tests was complete, a young doctor told me I was going to need to stay in Miami for about 6 weeks, and that he was going to contact my parents. From there, I was sent to an MRI. I stayed in this machine for about 3 hours. I was scared and alone. I had never been in a machine like this before. It was loud and very small. This was the point where I started to feel scared because I couldn't tell where my body was in space, almost like I was floating, but I was hurting and very hot. I was also having a hard time breathing, which made me really tired. After I was finished with my MRI, it was about 2 a.m. I was able to talk to the teacher who went to the hospital with me. and she said my dad was trying to fly down to Florida. I had never been so tired in my life, and I really wanted to go home and see familiar people. 2 doctors met us after the MRI. I can still picture their faces. They brought me up to the ICU. Once I got up to my ICU room, I met so many doctors and nurses. Instantly, they asked me what felt like a million questions and started to attach my body to monitors and medications. I remember lying still in the room, just hearing beeps and wishing I wasn't by myself. I didn't sleep all night, hoping it would help my parents come faster. I must have asked my teacher and nurses 100 times where they were. My dad arrived by himself sometime Sunday afternoon. I remember seeing him walk around the nurse's station. Right away, I thought, I'm over here. Once he got to my room, he sat down on the right side of my bed and asked me what the Bible says about events like these, but I wasn't exactly sure what he meant. He said, well, how many times does God command us not to be afraid? I said, 365 times. He said, yes, once for every day. At this point, I had grown extremely unstable and weak, and doctors needed my dad to leave so they could help me breathe. I remember this made me really mad, but I had no choice. As he walked away, I told him I loved him, and he stopped in the doorway, turned around, smiled, and said, I love you more. The next thing I remember was looking up at people and saying, I'm scared, in a shaky voice, with no response. The doctors had given me medication to help me sleep, so the next 10 days are a bit foggy. I have memories of looking at a clock in the dark, and my dad asking me if I was in pain, nurses asking me if I needed more pain medication. I remember praying while the medication helped me sleep. I remember asking God to not let me die because I knew my mom needed me. I think I prayed this about twice. The third prayer I remember saying was, God, if you're ready for me to come home with you, help me, or help my family to be okay with that, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to. I knew how damaged my body was, but I knew I didn't want to leave my family. After many more days of literally living on the edge, I was stable enough to wake up. I woke up and I wanted orange Gatorade to drink, and I wanted to get out of bed and spend time with my family. But I was totally unaware of how sick I was, and that sitting on a couch, or giving myself a drink, or sitting up in any sort of way would be an impossible task for a long time. I couldn't sit up, but I was allowed to have Gatorade and ice chips, so that made me happy. I spent 2 weeks in Miami, and the night before I was able to take a medical jet home to Chicago, I moved my right thumb. I was so excited because I wasn't supposed to be able to move anything for the rest of my life. I was supposed to lay in a bed still and move. To be honest, my family and I never believed the things we were told. I knew I was strong. I was an athlete, and it simply wasn't my style to slow down or be sick anyways. I was flown home to Chicago, where I stayed in the ICU at Comer Children's Hospital for another 2 weeks. It was there we saw God perform miracles. We met a doctor who changed the outlook of my diagnosis. This doctor gave us hope for the first time. He told us he thought my body had been attacked by a virus. He thought with hard work and therapy, I would only get stronger, but he still didn't know exactly how much recovery I was going to gain. From Comer Children's Hospital, I was moved to a special hospital downtown, where I could get therapy from people with advanced skills. I stayed in this hospital for about 4 months. My parents and family took turns living with me and helping me learn how to relive my life. One thing I can say for sure is that I wasn't in the hospital for 6 months. We were. My family was there every day. I gradually got stronger and felt more like my own self. The biggest question, of course, was how was I going to get around? well, I needed a wheelchair. I thought everyone was crazy. Didn't they know what athletes were able to accomplish when they worked hard and had God on their side? Yes, it is true. People who have faith, whether they are athletes or not, can accomplish so much. My favorite Bible verse continues to be Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. This Bible verse blesses my outlook every day. It has made me look at my wheelchair differently and has allowed me to meet some amazing new friends that are truly more like family. I have several special people in my life that I am able to share the struggles and joys of being a wheelchair user with. Who knows where we would be without each other today? I am so thankful because if I didn't have my wheelchair, I wouldn't be able to go anywhere. I'm so thankful that I also need less and less help pushing it around every day. God always gives me the strength I need in the morning to sit in my chair and face the day. It's never what I would call easy. There are days that I hate the way it confines me, and I want to run again in the worst way. And yet other days, I wouldn't change a thing. I've been doing therapy with minimal breaks for the past 4 years, and have accomplished so much. Although progress is a lot slower than I ever imagined, I am accomplishing my goals. Last year, I started to walk with one of my trainers. I can move my right leg independently, and my left leg is so close to taking steps. The left side of my body is much weaker than the right side, but I actually started to wiggle my left toes last month for the first time in 4 years. Reflecting back on the past 4 years, I'm blessed to have gotten fit. I've met so many amazing people, and they have become a huge part of my support system and some of my best friends. I've learned God's plans are the best plans, and we should not be afraid. We only need to trust in Him, even though we are only human, and I even go through phases of why did this happen? When I feel weak, like the challenges of my everyday life are just too much, I look back to 2011. I think about the pain and weakness that I have been blessed to overcome. And I think about the strength I have regained and all the things I am able to do again. I also ask myself if I can imagine my life without the amazing nurses, trainers, and new friends that have carried me on this journey, and I honestly cannot. I am still not able to run, play volleyball, or walk around my house, but I have the hope that with more work, I will be able to participate in those activities in one way or another. I'm so excited to be able to share what God has done in my life over the past 4 years. I want you to all know that God has a plan for your life, even if it is different than your plan. It's going to be okay. When things get tough, something good is waiting for you on the other side. It may take a long time to discover what that is, but God knows, and it's going to be something way better than we could ever imagine for ourselves. Bring your fears to the Lord, because He cares for you and loves you very much. Have faith, and you will be given the strength you need to overcome any obstacles in your way.